Most people are just eating the muscle meats and the sausages like we talked about, which are actually low in those amino acids you just mentioned, the glycine, taurine, glutamine, and they're
Mhm.
really high in the cancer promoters, the methionine. So most Americans are on a high methionine diet.
Glycine does so much more than I ever knew. It supports healthy blood sugar levels. They're seeing it with sleep benefits, sleeping better at night. So that's a huge one. And also glutamine is another one. And that's the most abundant one in the body. And it aids in repairing and rebuilding of muscles.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 139 of the Healthy Habit Podcast. We are talking with Laurel Sterling today, back on the show. Last time we talked was back on episode 56 last year, almost about a year ago was the last release for that episode. Laurel Sterling's a registered dietitian-nutritionist, certified nutritionist, and national educator for Carlson Labs, and she has worked in the natural products industry since 2000. Over the years, Laurel has counseled hundreds of individuals, lectured at various corporations and events, written numerous articles and blogs, and can be heard on radio shows and podcasts like this one. Laurel has a genuine passion for educating, informing, and empowering the public through nutrition education. Laurel, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And so today we have a good lineup. We are ready to go dive here into a couple topics, such as protocols for frail and elderly, signs and symptoms, what we can do, how to test things for sarcopenia. Let's dive right into it. The stage is yours, Laurel. Tell us about sarcopenia, like a 10,000-foot bird's eye view. Introduce us to this topic.
Okay. So when I started back in my grad school, probably that was 2000 to 2003, when we talked about sarcopenia, it was typically looked at as for those extremely frail people that have extreme illnesses where they're housebound, chairbound, or they're in the hospital from a long illness or an accident, and they start having that extreme muscle wasting. But now it's been looked at a little bit differently as of late. They're doing a lot of research with exercise and different supplements. And so it's very interesting to me. It became a point of concern when I was listening to some of the lectures out there. And Dr. Peter Attia, actually, I'm sure a lot of people know of him. He talks about it in his book and on his podcast as well. So it's really important to maintain that muscle strength. And it's basically looking at muscle strength and mass, how much we
Right.
have throughout our lifetime.
Right. And it's no longer just the frail and elderly, correct? Tell us more about this. It's
Right.
important, right? They strengthen the tendons, the ligaments, they make our bones stronger. They literally protect against multiple types of cancers and dementia, the more muscle mass we build throughout our life. So tell us more about that. It's not just frail, elderly, and
Right.
more on that topic.
Well, so as we age, there's just the natural progression through life.
Right.
And so they've seen up to age 30 that typically bone mass and muscle mass is building. But then at that point in time, and it's not an absolute at age 30, but somewhere around there, it starts to just go backwards. And so we need to really work harder at maintaining the bone structure and the muscles and the tendons and ligaments, like you said. The stuff that they've seen lately, as of recent in some of the research, and the numbers will vary, but after age 50, we lose 1 to 2% of the muscle mass each year, which to me is very scary, being that I'm in my 50s. So, and then after age 80, there's a great increase in that. Again, they'll say like 11 to 50% of the population has sarcopenia, and that number is just increasing. I think it's up to, I don't know how many million, 200 million or up to 500 million in the next 40 years will be coming an issue. And this is an issue out in the community as well as people with aging parents too. So we really want to start looking at this at a much younger age and see what we can do for preventative. But also, they've seen a lot that you can do even when you do have it. And that's kind of some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about as we go along.
Absolutely. So let's do that then. Someone finds out this is progressing. They're noticing they're getting weaker. They used to be able to do 20 push-ups. Now they can only do 7. I've heard people they can only do a couple now, and they were
Right.
surprised. They haven't tried doing push-ups in decades. So what can we do then from that point? We'll hit on collagen production, antioxidants, different
Yes.
types of amino acids like glycine, glutamine, taurine. Where do you want to start us?
Well, first I'm going to look at like signs, symptoms, causes. So
Got it.
that'll kind of set the stage sort of for what's going on. So mitochondrial dysfunction. Again, this is natural aging process, right? So things just start decreasing. In addition to that, there's more inflammation that continues throughout, depending on what someone has going on in their bodies. If they do have some other illnesses going
Right.
on, lower protein synthesis. So it they're not building, and the fact that there's less protein that we have in our body, it becomes almost like insulin resistance. It's like, wait a minute, how do we, if we're ingesting protein, the body just thinks we don't know how to actually use this to build more protein.
Right.
So also lower blood flow as we age. There's other things, like I said, increased cytokines. So that will lead into why we would need more antioxidants. Smaller birth rate, actually, or weight. That's something that they've been looking at, because if you were born with a lower store, then that might be an issue throughout as you progress throughout life. And then you look at hormones like DHEA is lower, which is a precursor to testosterone, which then that'll be lower. Lower IGF-1, which is insulin growth factor, which helps out with growth and development in our system. So a lot of those things set the stage. So it's going to be different, obviously, for everybody with what's going on in genetics. You can't forget about genetics and nutrition too.
Right.
So those are some of the, so to speak, causes of that. And testing, really, what they do look at is a variety of different things. The European Working Group of Sarcopenia and older people were looking to take out older in there. They just wanted to say that basically sarcopenia is a lower muscle mass and lower strength, and not
Yeah.
just associate with age. So now they're looking at things like grip strength. And that's, again, one thing that Dr. Attia looked at. And there was a study called the Pure study, and they looked at, it was like 17 different countries, people from various ages, like 30 to 70, and all different types of socioeconomical backgrounds. And they were looking at cardiovascular and other causes of mortality. And they found that there was a high correlation between grip strength being low and mortality.
Right.
And I mean, if you think about that, that's everything from us standing up to sitting down to reaching over for a towel and falling.
Right.
And we know that typically there's a higher association with when there's falls and breaks and fractures, then there's issues with mortality
Yep.
following that, because the healing isn't so strong at that point in time. So those are some of the things they look at. Also, stand up, sit down, like how fast and how many you can do within a certain amount of seconds, how fast the gait is across for a certain amount of time that they time you for.
Yeah.
So, and then the ability to not use aids as far as going up and down in a seat or walking up and down the stairs, not having to have a cane or anything like that. So that's kind of how they start looking at it. They also do measurements in your blood.
Yeah.
So different lab values. They look at your vitamin D, which we'll talk about that stuff, the D status, the omega-3 status, magnesium, and then other hormones and whatnot. And they will also measure the I think they use tape measures, and sometimes you can use the BMIs, where you look at the cross sections of the muscle and how much there is versus the fat mass. So muscle
Yes.
mass versus fat mass, the compartments. So they'll measure that as well.
Incredible. Yeah, we just went through the causes here, things to look out for. It's not just the frail and elderly being affected by sarcopenia, folks, here in episode number 139 with Laurel Sterling here on the podcast. You can like and subscribe this one, follow us to stay in the loop with what's going on here at Healthy Habit. And remember, Laurel is representing Carlson Labs here, National Educator for Carlson Labs. Registered Dietitian-Nutritionist, and Certified Nutritionist. So thanks for breaking that down, Laurel. Tell us more about the oxidative stress component. You mentioned the mitochondria are being directly affected. Remember, that's some of the biggest storehouses of mitochondria in our body is in the muscles, correct?
Right, exactly. Hundreds of those, especially in the heart, there's hundreds of those in there. So you really want to, or more than hundreds in the cells, but
In just one
thousands,
cell, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it's so important to maintain that muscle mass because your heart being one of the largest muscles too. So when again, there's this great picture and infographic that I saw of it, and it just shows it's kind of like that. Where does it start? So it's the natural aging process that would cause these things like the mitochondrial dysfunctioning, but also anything else like we were saying, illness and medications and all that will come into play. So it will
Yeah.
decrease it. And then any other inflammation that's going on, we need to balance that. And that's where there's increased cytokines. And so the antioxidants are really huge in there. And they were looking at studies with, again, here we go with the Mediterranean diet with all the
Yeah.
different polyphenols and antioxidants in there and protein and omega-3s that help out, that they were seeing with actually sarcopenia assisting that. So we need to make sure that we keep up with those rainbow colors of our diet. And in addition to that, again, there's supplements. And again, the supplements that I'll talk about, I can't claim with any sort of, with the FDA disclaimer, with no, we don't test these specifically with treating or preventing diseases. So
Yeah.
these are just that I'm citing the studies related to that. I just wanted people to know that as well.
Right, to help regulate that inflammation, right? Otherwise, it's just running out of control, like weeds taking over
Exactly.
a yard. We can take things to help mitigate it because we're supposed to have some level of inflammation, right, Laurel? Just when it
Exactly.
runs out of control is the problem. And
And
that's when
that's
it starts even attacking the muscles, becomes catabolic. So tell us
exactly.
then more about some antioxidants that we can start plugging in. What does Carlson offer to maybe get this process started? Even collagen production we have here in the show notes.
Sure, yeah. So one of the great products that I love, and it was one of our original products, and I take this myself. It was the one that our founder, Susan Carlson, formulated. It's called ACEs, or the ACEs plus zinc. So that's ACE, selenium, and then the one also with the zinc. And again, there was a specific study where they were looking at antioxidants, and they actually labeled those, and they gave certain amounts where they were saying you needed a certain amount of E and D, and D is not in this one, but D I'll talk about, but magnesium, fruits and vegetables, tea, catechins, things like that, that all supported with the balancing of, again, the oxidation, because we don't want that sort of rusting or crusting of our cells. We really want to make sure they're nice and fluid, and down regulating. That's basically what vitamin D has been seen to do, is those inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, interleukin 6. That actually has been seen to down regulate inflammatory markers, which is another thing where that has been seen to increase with sarcopenia and the muscle breakdown.
Right. And I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. This is straight from carlsonlabs.com. You can see up here ACEs plus zinc. Can you see this, Laurel?
Yes.
Perfect. So helps protect cells from free radical damage, which is what we just talked about, which is
Mhm.
oxidative stress, like rusting on a piece of metal, like you mentioned, rusting. I think that's a good way
Right.
to look at it. Promotes a healthy immune system. And then, of course, these natural antioxidants, selenium, vitamins A, C, E. That's why it's specific to these, correct? They want it to be kind of cover multiple bases,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
specifically, we're going to have just vitamins A, C, E here, calcium, zinc, and selenium. And this is one of the older products, right? This has been around
Yeah.
for a long time, correct?
I think since the 70s. Yeah, I
Wow.
think yeah, it's a great product, and it's a top selling product that we have. And again, this is one that I can't talk about enough. It's just a
Yeah.
wonderful all around product for the antioxidant benefits.
Vitamin E is not a common supplement in people's diet. That's a really effective anti-inflammatory, antioxidant agent as well. It's even
Hmm.
really good for men's health too, and maintaining muscle mass. It's going with today's topic of anti-sarcopenia nutrients. So
Right.
perfect. So again, carlsonlabs.com, or you can even come to Healthy Habit Health Foods here at 6029 North 7th Street to pick up your bottle here to get started. And this is Is this a replacement for a multivitamin? No, because we just have the
No,
five, correct? Would you
right,
have
yeah.
it alongside a multi, maybe?
Exactly. That would be alongside of it for sure. And as you were talking about, there's C in there as well, and that
Right,
is assisting with the collagen production that you were talking about too. So,
right.
um, hmm
Yeah, most people don't know that vitamin C is critical for producing collagen, strengthening the ligaments, tendons, and
exactly.
skin health. It's not just for the immune system. So perfect. Thanks for covering ACEs plus zinc. And what would be next up on the menu for a heavy hitter here? Someone's coming in and they're looking to start their anti-sarcopenia journey, Laurel.
Oh boy. I don't I can't say one. There's probably four top ones. The research that
Yeah.
I've seen with vitamin D has been big because there's been studies with Japanese women, and they were looking at their vitamin D levels, and the higher their D levels were, they actually helped out with strength and stability. And there's even been other ones too where they did a D and omega-3. And omega-3 is another really big one that they've seen with people that are consistent users of omega-3s. It increases lean muscle mass, decreases fat mass, increases resting metabolic rate, increases beta oxidation, which is basically fatty acids and turning that into energy. And those that are using it over 6 weeks or more have increased their basal metabolic rate and decreased total body fat. And that's just by just using omega-3s. That's not even combination with number one is what they say on there for their really what they're saying is exercise. It's to use it or lose it. And any of these are in combination with that because, like I said, exercise was number one. They saw within 5 days that 25% people had decreased their strap or their strength, and they lost muscle mass, and postprandial muscle protein synthesis went down 31%. Within 2 weeks, 75% of their decreased step count, they saw the insulin sensitivity went down by 43% and insulin resistance went up 25%. So that's exercise. And
Right.
so they've seen in some of the studies, there's a DO study that was looking at D and omega-3s along with resistance training exercise at home and saw a great benefit with the synergy of all of that. So it's kind of looking at, not just any of these isolated, it's exercise along with eating that healthier diet with the antioxidants, making sure you're taking your omega-3s regularly and your vitamin D and getting tested for those levels to know how much you would need. And then the other aspect is amino acids and protein. That's another heavy hitter too, because there's an issue as we get older too, not getting in enough protein for various reasons. It might be for dentures, for the cost of it, for just not the taste as we get
Yeah.
older is an issue. So making sure that you're getting enough protein throughout. And if somebody is diagnosed with sarcopenia, it's usually a lot higher of amount per kilogram per day,
Yeah.
like two, which normally it should be like 0.08 to 1. But if someone's diagnosed, it's like 2 per kilogram per body weight
Yeah.
per day. So amino acids are another big one.
Right. And so those are the building blocks of the proteins specifically.
Exactly.
So do you think a lot of Americans aren't, I feel like they are getting enough protein, but maybe the wrong types, or I'm not sure what's going on there. Same with fats. It's not like we're in a fat deficiency, but it's the wrong types of fats, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, when I typically think of it's difficult to say, I guess, with the protein
Yeah.
aspect of it. I mean, elderly for sure, I would say that they
They're
have a
just not eating
deficiency.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not eating enough in
In general.
general, so a calorie deficit. But you think of those people that are working out a lot, they focus a lot on protein and carbohydrates for the muscle aspects of it, for replenishing the glycogen and
Right.
building muscle stores. But for the average person, they probably are eating too much, but like you said, not the right types, not the lean, healthier proteins that come along with the unhealthy fats potentially that increase that inflammation going. So there, it's like
Right.
they're trying to, but it's still not. And there's a big push too for vegetarianism and those that are not eating that's more plant-based, which plant-based you can hit your amount of proteins with
Exactly.
plant-based products, and there's so many protein drinks out there and bars and whatnot. But again, the right type, like you said, and the right amount for your body weight.
Right. Most people aren't eating just lean red meat or like a lean steak. It's like the bacons and the sausages, hot dogs, tons of cheese, which has protein in it, but there's also the fat.
Right.
So, yeah, I get what you're saying. Perfect. What
Yeah.
else would be on the radar, folks? This has been a good one so far. Episode 139 with Laurel Sterling. We've covered oxidative stress, mitochondria, an important product that's been around since the 70s, you said, the ACEs plus zinc through
Yep.
Carlson Labs, which contains the vitamins A, C, E, selenium, and zinc to keep inflammation under control, which protects the muscles, by the way. There's tons of research on vitamin C, how it's anti-sarcopenia, and it protects muscle mass in athletes. Vitamin C is much more than the immune system, folks. What else is on the menu here for today? Maybe a couple more minutes here, Laurel.
Yeah, so we talked about D, and we have plenty of D products. Omega-3s too, another one that's usually you want to get at least upwards to, well, from 1 to 2 grams a day of omega-3s. And then the others I was talking about with protein, so glycine is a big one, and glutamine. Glycine maintains strength and supports in muscle, enables production of collagen too. Glycine does so much more than I ever knew. It supports healthy blood sugar levels. They're seeing it with sleep benefits, sleeping better at night. So that's a huge one. And also glutamine is another one. And that's the most abundant one in the body. And it aids in repairing and rebuilding of muscles, supports muscle tissue production. So those two, I think are some really big ones as well. If again, I mean, I think that people are getting protein, but maybe not enough of the variety of the
100%.
aminos too.
You're
That
right.
that's
Like bone broth and collagen powder and bone marrow and
right.
stuff like that. Most people are just eating the muscle meats and the sausages, like we talked about, which are actually low in those amino acids you just mentioned, the glycine, taurine, glutamine, and they're
Mhm.
really high in the cancer promoters, the methionine. So most Americans are on a high methionine diet. So
Not
I'm
good.
glad you mentioned those.
Sure.
Is there a product that contains those at Carlson, or what kind of,
We
how
have
would we get
separate
more of those?
ones. We have separate powders that you could put into, say you were making a smoothie, you could concoct all this. We have a vitamin C powder and glycine and glutamine powders. We have an omega-3, which I love the omega-3 and MCT oil that we have because MCT is an instant energy source as well. And I think that that would be another thing that you could just add right in and put your little D drops. There you go. You've got your whole little concoction in one smoothie and add in, I guess, I don't know, a whey protein base of that smoothie.
Yeah,
And then you get probably everything you needed right there.
right. Yeah, again, that's an important takeaway that those amino acids we need the variety, right? And
Variety.
that's where I like collagen. It's high in glycine and things of that nature, which is an anti-stress protein as well. So, what's
Mhm.
your thoughts on bone marrow, bone broth, those types of things? Bone broth, for example.
Yeah, I know it's a big push. I
Yeah,
don't know a lot, like as far as I don't use it. I'm
right.
more on the vegetarian end of it, but I know that's huge for sure for a lot of people, and it's a great source, and it does a lot more as far as healing, and so that's all I can comment on it as far as
No, I agree. Pretty much
yeah,
I'm 85% plant-based, 80% whole foods plant-based. I mean, we used to be vegan, but then it's just eating enough. So that's where
right,
beans and lentils play a role. Most people don't,
right,
they forgot about the legume food group. Do you want to touch
right.
on that a little bit for getting our protein?
Yeah, definitely. You know, in some of the studies we're looking at that actually a great source of it. Like I use organic tofu and
100%.
beans is my source, and I have my own chickens, and so I feed them organic feed, and so I use those eggs, and then sometimes I'll have salmon. So I think in that all in combination, you'll see you can get plenty of your aminos from those. Like I said, a
100%.
variety. That's the thing, variety, so we can actually get a variety of different nutrients in.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, folks. Okay, so Laura, we'll come into the tail end here. Let's get a summary going here, a take home message. People are listening to us as they're shopping in the store right now. Sarcopenia. Tell us what's the takeaway here?
Okay, so it's not just for the elderly. We need to make sure that we are maintaining muscle strength and mass. So exercise with um, doing aerobic as well as strength training throughout the week. Making sure that you're having a variety of nutrients and like more of a Mediterranean diet. And then also making sure you look at your A1C, vitamin D status, omega-3 status, that you're up on top of your um, just your lab work and making sure that things are on par. And I guess that would be, and not just thinking of it as something that as we age, we really need to just continue the preventative aspect of it throughout our life.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for your time, Laurel. I look forward to our next one. This was good. There's a lot of hidden gems here, so we're going to post-produce this, edit it, and this should be coming out in about 2 to 3 weeks here. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.